Welcome back then folks to, of course, build number 6 out of Special Projects pack number 11. This time around for a car which I saw quite a bit of love for and recognition in the comments regarding James May in Top Gear. It is of course the Aston Martin Vantage N24, but more so the actual racing version rather than the road variant. So in terms of the spec, it's not massively different to the normal V8 Vantage. Now, of course, the one that we have in the game technically already has more horsepower because it's the Vantage S rather than the standard version, so you're actually looking to give it less horsepower than you had to begin with, and also a lot less weight as well, of course. So we've got the Stage 1 weight reduction. It comes with sports hard tyres anyway. Of course, we'll have changed those in a second. For the Club Sports section, we've got Stage 2 weight, power restrictor and ballast. As far as the semi-racing stuff, the fully customised diff, I've opted for the fully customised manual transmission. Stage 3 weight is untouched, and I actually haven't bothered to do the body rigidity on this one. As you can see, it slightly lowers the point level just a little bit. You could go for it if you want to, but I've opted not to in this case. Doesn't really feel like it necessarily needs it. I have gone for the racing exhaust though. And it begs the question of why, of course, because I said you need less horsepower. You don't actually have to do that. You could leave it off if you want to. The only reason why I did is I wanted it to sound more like a proper race car. So you could go for a different exhaust, you could go for that one, you could leave it completely standard. I'll leave that all down to you. As far as the brakes, we've got the drilled discs. Like I said before, you could go for the carbon ceramics, you could go for drilled, could go for vented. I'll leave it all down to you, and of course the racing pads as well. We've got race suspension, the race clutch and flywheel, and I've opted for racing hard tyres. You could say overkill, but it is a race car at the end of the day, so seems appropriate for it to have that level of rubber. And of course, that could come in handy if you end up wanting to use it for lower point level events. Say, get it under 600 points, for example. You could put it on sports instead of racing. So there's definitely some versatility there. I've gone for the steering angle adapter, surprise, surprise, of course, for that extra manoeuvrability, and for the ultimate stuff, there is nothing fitted. So it's a very, very affordable build to do. The car itself isn't overly expensive either. Of course, as far as the visuals, I've put a link in the description, as always, to download the player's livery, and obviously loads of people have done N24 liveries for the Vantage. As far as the tuning, as you can see, 640 points, so not that high for a vehicle that's a lot lighter and has racing tyres. So like I said, you could potentially use it for quite a lot of different events if you wanted to. So we've got racing hards, of course, fitted. For the suspension, 95mm on the ride height, 4 for anti-roll, 30 and 40 for the dampers, 2.75 for the springs, 2 degrees of camber, and then as far as the toe, we've towed out 0.5 on the front and in 0.20 on the rear. As far as the diff, fairly simple setup there, 10, 30 and 20. We'll get, of course, to how it drives in a second. I will say some people might find it a little bit too similar to the road car still. It's still got that bit of kind of tail slip, which you can play around with. You can drift it, certainly if you wanted to, but it's an Aston at the end of the day. You know, it doesn't have some crazy aero kit. You still want it to feel authentic to an Aston Martin, and I'm sure the race car can slip if you let it. So, you know, in terms of realism, you don't want it to be too easy to drive, if that makes sense either, but it certainly isn't difficult to drive. As far as the transmission, I've got that one set on an auto setting of 320 kilometers an hour. That might even be too long of a gearing setup, really. That's up around 200 miles an hour. So you could put it down to maybe 300 if you're on a tighter circuit. I'll leave it down to you, though. As far as the ballast, you want 42 kilos to bring us up to the real even, weight of the N24 race car, which is apparently 1,330 kilos. I've put that 15% toward the front, which is still technically a 50-50 split, but just slightly more. It's like a 50.5 to 49.5. As far as the power restrictor, you want to take that down to 93% to bring us to 413 horsepower. And then as far as the ECU, of course, that wasn't fitted, so that isn't touched. For the downforce, you can't adjust those anyway, but it does have just a little bit. And as far as the stuff over here, it's pretty simple because you already saw us fit it. So like I said, very, very easy one in terms of setting up and building the car. All that remains is naturally to take it out to the Nordschleifer. You can't really take this thing anywhere else, can you? To show what it can do in practice. Now, like I already said, there is definitely some slip there. You can kick out the tail for sure, but it is very smooth to drive, and I'll say I wouldn't call this a challenging car by any stretch. It has about as much tail happiness as you would expect something like a supercar to have. So like a TVR, an Aston, a Jag, that kind of thing. There's nothing too surprising about driving it. It's pretty much exactly what you're expecting. It's an Aston V8 Vantage, which is already pretty compact and very quick, but with racing tyres, less weight and better brakes. So of course it's going to be good, of course it's going to be quick, and the fact that the point level is only 640 even with racing tyres really does go to show how versatile the tune could be if you do want to use it for example, career mode stuff, or maybe point restricted online events, maybe de-restrict it to like 600 points with different tyres. Regardless though, if you do decide to use it, it's a nicer side. You know, it's not a Group 4, it's not the Group 3, but it's not quite the road car. It is technically, but you get to have that kind of middle ground, you know, something that's not quite even Group 4, but arguably just as useful as the Group 4 in career mode at least. So if you are new to special projects, of course stick around for the rest. In this coming week, check out the ones which I've already released over the past few days, and of course I hope you guys who do decide to do the build enjoy it. But I'll see you next time, and for now, thanks for watching.